Welcome to another video where we discuss the RT-PAT. If you are doing information technology as a subject in South Africa, then you might come across this thing called a practical assessment task, a PAT that you need to do, which counts 25% of your final mark. So it's very important. And we're going to spend today's video just talking about some tips and ideas about getting started with your phase 1 document. So some of you might be thinking, well, why do we need to do a document for so long? We are coders, we are programmers. Why are we writing these documents? Well, let's just talk first of all why we are doing a document. Well, if any of you are considering going into the IT field, especially in the programming field, it's a good idea to understand these basic concepts because it's very important. What you are technically doing is what's called an analysis and design. Now, if you are working in the industry, and there's another document as well called a requirements document that you'd end up developing, all of these documents are very important and they're there for a reason. Well, one of the main reasons is so that you can understand clearly what is expected of you. Now, your PAT is obviously between you and yourself and the topic that's given to you by the department. But in the industry, you would obviously make a program for a client and you want to understand exactly what the client wants. What is it that they're looking for in their program, or what must the program do? Because you are solving their problem that they've got. That's why they've come to you. They want you to develop a program that will help solve their problem or make their life easier. The other reason to do this document is to protect you from future changes, because it's very easy for clients to go, "Ooh, I can see that you can do this. How about if we add this and this and that?" And you can do that, but if you have your analysis and design and your requirements set up in the beginning, you almost like sign off on this. This is before we even get to the code. Are we happy with what you want? And then you sign off, you give a quote based on that particular document, and then you can start writing the code. If the client comes later and says, "Hey, no, I actually want this, this, and this," you've got evidence that they signed off that this is actually what they wanted originally. And so if you are going to make changes, you can do that, but that obviously can affect the timeline and obviously the cost involved. So you would do this to protect yourself. So if the client does come with changes, that at least it's not going to, that you can say, okay, well, if we do these changes, that's fine, but it's going to cost a little bit more, or it's going to take a bit longer to do this part. And so that at least the client understands that there are extra things involved, that that's not what was originally planned. So if any of you are thinking of going into the IT field, but you really like working with people, this is actually a field that you can go into. So there are some companies where they have people that just do this analysis and design and requirements, where they meet with the people, with the clients, and discuss ideas and what they want and develop these documents, and then they end up giving it to the programmers who end up developing the system. So if that's what you're interested in, like being a project manager or something like that, then this is actually very important for you. So let's get started with our document. And the key thing to the document is to refer to what you are expected to do for your phase 1 document. So let's go look at the details in the document given to us by the department. Now, I am using the 2022 document for today's lesson. Obviously, it's something that's very important. If you get previous or other versions of the PAT, future versions, for example, make sure that you read through all the instructions carefully. There might be things that change slightly from year to year. So although I'm going to be basing it off of 2022, there might be things that change in future. So just make sure that you double check what is required and double check the rubric, which we're going to look at just now. So let's have a look. So the first thing is we need a document. So these are the things that need to be in your document. So the first thing is the topic and scope. So we need quite a bit of words, like a couple of paragraphs specifying these little things there. So I'm going to go straight to the rubric. I've got the rubric over here. This is the phase 1 rubric. There you can see there's the mark allocation for the scenario and scope. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a document. I've got a document set up here, and I'm going to start off by creating my heading. So a nice thing to do, especially if you don't do CAT, you might not know all the word things to do and stuff like that. So I'm going to say scenario and scope and have that as a heading. Now, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put this on a second page. So for those of you who don't know, we're going to insert a page break. So when we get there, so there we go. I'm going to click on that page break. So it puts it on a brand new page. So there we go. So we've got our page 1, because we probably want to put some stuff on the front page. And so here we've got our scenario and scope. And then I'm going to press enter. And so I will type in here what must be our scenario and scope. And so here we need to address, what are we addressing? We're addressing those 4 things. We need to make sure that the topic is clearly stated, that we have a thorough description of the problem and describe the possible solution, and a brief description of the scope. So let's go over here. I'm going to write them now ahead of time. So there I've written down what the 4 things are that we need for this scenario and scope. So what I would do is I would write that down, and then underneath each one, make sure you write at least 1 line or preferably a paragraph of each of these things. And that way you should get enough words for what you are trying to accomplish. So let's just talk about what these things are. So the topic clearly stated. So that could be a sentence, and that you're basically going to be just saying what your PAT topic is. That would be different from here to here, but go and look at your PAT topic, go look at what they describe. Maybe you can get some nice wording from there. So that'll be your topic that's clearly stated. Now, these are the next 3. The description of the problem. Now, you say, what's the problem, Mr. Long? Well, the problem is every computer system is a solution to a problem. That's why we make computer systems. So you need to almost like make up a problem. So you think of what your topic is, you think about what program you are wanting to design, and you need to think that I'm making this program for someone that has a problem. And the problem is normally that they don't have a computer system to do what they want them to do. Like if it's registering for courses or a restaurant system, they don't have a program for their particular business, or they have a program, but it's not working very well. Or it's like a paper system, or they don't have they don't have all the tools they need to be able to do the task. So you almost need to create a problem. You need to think from the client's perspective. So you need to make up a problem, make up an idea that your program that you are hoping to create will solve. So yeah, you would talk about, hey, we've got a restaurant, and they currently do all of their orders on paper, and then the waitrons take the paper to the chef, and then these papers get lost. And so you can create this little dynamic where there's a problem with the current system that they've got. Or they're currently using Excel, and it doesn't always update, and they have to open up a new Excel sheet every time they're doing. So you can create these little problems. A nice little paragraph describing a problem. Obviously you can make it up for, you already know what the solution is going to be, because you know what program you want to design. You're just making up a problem that your program is going to solve. Then the possible solution, is where you talk about your programs. I think a computer program can solve this problem. How can it do it? Well, we can create programs that can allow users to log on. So there's extra security. We can have parts where we can digitize everything, where we can create text files that are going to display. So talk about the things that a computer system could do. We could minimize the amount of time that's being done. So you're basically describing how your computer program is going to solve that problem, how it's going to minimize. We don't have to have, this is a problem, we are losing paper. On the computer system, we can keep track of everything in a database and stuff like that. So you can talk about what your possible solution is. And then the scope is going to be listing exactly what you want your program to do. So you don't have to go into specific details with the code, but you need to give like a generalized idea. Like, so the user, for the scope of this program, we want the user to be able to log on, a general user to be able to log on. They must be able to see their details. They must be able to change their details, and they can see reports about their analysis and how they've been doing in this particular scenario, depending on obviously what your program is going to do. And we'll also have a system for the administrator where they can log on and they can make multiple changes to all sorts of the records. So if someone made a mistake and they can't get into their system, you can go and change their password or something like that. So as I said, think about what exactly you want, and you would, by just describing these and just by laying them out, you'll probably fill those with paragraphs quite easily. So that's going to be your scenario and scope. The next part is the user requirements. We have to have, the user is our target audience, the people that are going to be using our program, and we need to determine their needs and requirements and what they can do. So we need to identify these types of users, like the general name for them, what they can and cannot do, and the requirements and stuff like that. So you can use a table or a use case diagram. So we're going to use a table. That's the easiest. If I go to the rubric, so they want to make sure that we state who the users are. We want the role, activity, and limitations, and in some sort of table form or use case. I suggest the table. That's probably the easiest. So I'm going to come here. I've made a little heading called user requirements, and I'm going to make a table. So let's make a table. Let's go. We're going to make a 3x4 table. So 3x4. There we go. And so there we go. So you got a nice, and so you can make this a bit smaller because that's going to be small and that's going to be a bit wider there. So make a nice little table. And so over here, we're going to talk. Now, if you are in Matric particularly, you need two types of users. So I'm going to have user 1, and you can write down who this is. So this could be the general user. Normally you will have a general user or general customer. And then your second user, which can do something different. Normally that's your administrator, something along those lines. Okay, administrator. So think about who your users are going to be. You might have a bit more. Did I spell administrator wrong? There we go. Let's go change it. There, that's OR, Mr. Long. Okay. And then as we saw in that rubric, we want to have the role, activity, and limitations. So let's see. We're going to, on here, put role. I'm going to put activity, and we're going to put limitations. Limitations. Make sure I spelled it right. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about that. So in this table, you're going to fill it out. Now, don't just put one line. You need to buff it up a bit. So the role, what is the role of the general user? What is it that they want to do? So the role of the general user is to be able to log on, and they want to be able to manage. So you're giving like a general overview of what a general user would want to use the program, or why they would want to use the program. And then a general overview of what the administrator would want to do. Okay, so that's a nice general overview. So the general users are going to want to be able to log onto the system so that they can see which courses they've registered for. They can be able to read that. We want to be able to register the courses and get some like basic statistics about them. So you're giving like a general overview. The activity is all the different activities. If you read here, let's go read what's so the activities that they want. If we look at the actual document, they specified just the basic like needs, requirements, and what they can do. So the activity are the different activities. Yeah, I would list the activities. The user must be able to log on. They must be able to edit their own details. They must be able to, so you would write all the things that they could do. The administrator might have a couple more things that they can do. They can log on. They can edit everyone's details. They can do other things. So they can see a graph of the general people's performance, where the general person can only see their own personal performance and stuff like that. And so those are the types of things that the general user can do, and that's the general things that, although those things that the administrator can do. And then the limitations. Yeah, you're going to write down what they cannot do, what we must be careful of restricting of. So we're going to restrict the general user to only see their own details. We want to restrict them when we log on. There's obviously going to be a special log on for them that they can only see their own details. They can only change their own details. And so there's going to be some sort of security that you're going to implement that only allows those people to do those things. They can see a chart of their progress. They can only be assigned to courses that are available, things like that. So you can list the limitations over there. The administrator might have like full range. So just say they do not have limitations. They can access all people's data. They're not limited to one. So you can specify that they don't have any limitations and they can see everyone. They can change multiple people's details, not just their own, and so on. They can add so those are the types of things. So you almost talking specifically about what the general person can do and what the administrator, or what the general person cannot do and what the administrator person can do despite of that. So that's how you would describe the limitations. So it's normally no limitations, they can do everything. And here you say, hey, these guys can't do this, this, and this. Okay, so that is the user requirements. And the last little bit for this video, we're going to talk about the navigation, description, flow of the flow diagram. So we want a diagram preferably to indicate the flow or navigation of between screens and stuff like that. So we need some sort of way to represent that. So if we look at the rubric, they just basically want to make sure that it's an excellent attempt to show all the sequences. There's not really a list. The key thing here is that it's a diagrammatical. In other words, it's an image that shows. So you can do this in multiple ways. You could create a flow chart. For those of you who've forgotten your flow charts, go review your flow charts. You can make a nice little flow chart, and the chart, the little parts are this. It goes from this screen to that screen. You could do something like that. There's a thing called UML. So if you're not sure what UML is, you can learn about it. You can look online for a UML document. So I'm just going to bring it up quickly. Some UML, which is Unified Modeling Language. So there you can see UML diagrams. You can learn about this if you want. You don't have to use UML diagrams, but they can give you an idea of what to expect. Even if you go to the images of UML diagrams, you can get some ideas, something like this. So you can see Basically, there is your actor or your user, and they're going to go onto the online store and see categories and stuff like that. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. I've got another diagram here, a UML, a use case diagram, so you can say, okay, the waiter is able to receive a food order, and it can extend to ordering wine. Those are normally optional, but you can do something that looks like this, not necessarily to this detail, but similar to what you want to create for your system with regard to the users. So in my document, I've created the heading. You can go and draw it on paper and then take a photo of it, or you can use image editing software to create it. Or if you want to just use Word, I can insert different shapes. So I could, I like to use, I'm sure there's a face here somewhere. Where's the face, Mr. Long? There's a face. So you could go and I'm going to insert this face, and you can put a little box underneath it. You can change its color, and we can insert a little box underneath it, a little text box. We're going to draw a text box underneath that little thing to say this is the general user. So let's draw a text box. This is for the people that don't know CAT so much. So yeah, we're going to draw a little text box, and this is the general user. So you can write that there. There we go. And then I don't like that the box has lines, but you can go, when you select the box, you can go shape outline. We want no outline, please. And then you can move that around. So let's move that there. Okay, so there's my general user. And then you can use these little blocks in that to say this. So the user is going to log on. So that's the first block. So you can make a little circle. You can move it around, and you can right click on it to add text to it. So when you right click it, you can go add text. So the general user is going to log on. Obviously, you can change the format of the text, and you can make it bold and so on. Make it bold and a bit bigger if you want. And then you can use little arrows to indicate. So there's lovely little arrows here that you can say the user will log on over there. So when you're using arrows, make sure that you use, for example, you can log on. If they go to the login screen, they don't have user details. They can then go to a registration screen. So you can copy and paste that, and then you get another one, and you go, okay, they can go and register if they want. And then we can then create, well, they can go to registration, and once they've registered, they're going to go back to log on. So in that case, that's like a dual arrow, like where there's 2 points on either end. So that's something along where there's a dual arrow, like something along those lines. So we want that type of arrow where there's a point. You can go from login to register back to log on, so they can log on, and then I'm going to go down to this particular screen. So plan what screens you're going to do, or what the main functions are. So the user's going to log on. Once they've logged on, they can then see their profile or edit their profile. They can change details, go to there. Maybe there's a screen to change your details and stuff like that. And then you would do something very similar, maybe use different colors to create this again. But now I'm going to copy that, and then we're going to paste that somewhere else. I'm going to move that down somewhere here, and we can change that particular color. And for this guy over here, this shape, we're going to change its full. Let's make it orange. This is the administrator, the admin person, and this is what the admin can do. And maybe they can also log on. So you might do an arrow that comes up to here if you want to do it as a combined of them. So that way you can create a nice flow diagram, so you can see what screens or what are the main functions of your program. Obviously, you need to have thought this out quite a bit, so you know exactly what your program is going to do. So that's how you can do those things. Before I finish, the one little thing I want to show you, especially if you don't do CAT, is I want to show you when you select these headings, just for later on, you'll see, I'm going to select these headings, and you'll see these lovely little headings over here for styles. So don't change them manually. Use one of the styles. I'll show you later why we do that. So I'm going to use a heading 1 for these particular headings. So we can select the headings and go, hey, I want that to be a heading 1, and I want this to be a heading 1. And if you want subheadings, then you can use obviously the subheadings. And if you don't like that style of that heading, you can just right click on it, and you can modify it to be exactly what you want it to be. So maybe we want it to be a bit bolder, and we want the text to be a bit bigger, and we prefer to use Arial Black for our idea. So if we do that, and automatically updates, that it updates all of them. So now we've got our nice little heading. So what's nice about that, if you do that, and obviously you save your document regularly, we can at the end or in the beginning, you can do it now if you want, but at some point you can insert a cover page here, but we can go to insert a table of contents. Now the table of contents is, I think, under references actually. Let's go to references. There's a table of contents, and if you just insert one, you can say just a general one, the default one if you want, it will obviously tell you all your scenario scope and what page it's on and so on. So it's quite nice. And if you make changes, just remember, if you make changes, you can right click on this document and update the field, and it will update the page numbers. So there we go. So that's still what I would recommend, just to give it that little panache, that little professional look at the end. So there we go. You got your ideas. You can go get started. Make sure that you get all the marks. Be as descriptive as you want. Don't write too little, rather write too much, because you won't lose marks for too much information, but you do lose marks if you don't have enough. So be descriptive with what you want to say, and make sure that you fill that out for your first part of your PAT. Phase 1 document. If you need more RT-PAT tips, then go to our YouTube channel, click on that subscribe button, go to the playlist. You'll see the playlist for all the RT-PATs tips and tricks. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.